Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia mogul.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
Sam Richter, a technology guru. It's not who you know, what you know, but what you know about who. And we were riding up to the city today because he's been working with some of my employees, and we were talking about, has emails and has technology helped you? Has it helped sales, or has it maybe hurt sales?
Yeah. I think the answer is
Sam
both.
Richter, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, and I think Brandon. I think the
Right
answer
to
is. I think the answer is both. I mean, technology can do a lot of things with sales, right? I mean, you can really is what I teach: how to find the right person, give the right message at the right time. So there's a lot of great things you can do, but I also think to some degree it's made us lazy.
People are just throwing stuff against the wall.
Yep.
You send out an email, and then I'm waiting for the answers to come back. But meanwhile, you're not sending the right email, or
Right.
maybe the right email to the wrong person.
Absolutely. And I think, let's go back to what is sales. Because I think a lot of people think that, sales has this negative connotation. I'm going to try to convince you to buy something that you normally wouldn't buy. The reality is, sales is an incredibly noble profession. And what do I mean is, if you're doing it right, what I'm trying to figure out is what's going on in Brandon Steiner's world? What do you care about? How do I make your life, can my solutions help you achieve your goals a little bit more profitably, more efficiently, more effectively than you might be able to do on your own? And then, you're going to pay me for that service. And
I love that.
And if we go back to the 1980s, or we go back to the 1880s, or we go back to the 1680s, before technology, it was all about relationships.
I got a stick of butter. Can I get some green beans that you're growing in your garden? I'll give you the butter for my cows.
And it was understanding you and building a relationship with you. And as I always like to say, people ask me, hey, how has the internet changed the way people buy and sell? Right? And of course, there's eBay and online auctions and reverse auctions and all this kind of stuff. But think about this: if anybody in this room or listening today was in sales, I like to say, there's date ranges: A, D, C, E, B, G stands for before Google, right? If you were in sales, BG, before Google, what did you used to do?
Call people up.
You used to and meet with them. Take them out for 2-hour lunches.
Write them a handwritten note.
Exactly. You had a relationship, right? You knew your customers, and you knew the names of your customers' kids and where they were going to school and what activities and when your customer was going on vacation. You had relationships with people.
The little things.
Now, I think what happens is a lot of people in sales are, you got to make these phone calls? Yep, I made 30 phone calls. No, you left 30 voicemails. You sent 60 emails that are going to get they're going to get right in the delete pile because they weren't personalized. You posted something on Facebook, or you sent out a tweet. No, I mean,
is the mass email almost like the rotor phone message you would get, almost as bad?
If you get
maybe
lucky,
worse.
If you get lucky, you might hit somebody, right? But if I send you an email saying, for those of us in business, you probably all received one of those emails saying, would you like help search engine optimizing your website? Delete,
Get them all
right?
day.
What if I sent you an email, Brandon? One of the things I know is you're launching a brand new book on business books. And right now, when I type Brandon Steiner into Google, the only thing that shows up is your awesome website and sports memorabilia. And I don't even get to business book until page 4. I've got a way to help get business books on top of page 1 without interfering with Brandon Steiner and the sports memorabilia. Would you have 90 seconds where you could learn more? Now, it's not 100% sure, but it's got your attention.
You're talking to me about something that is interesting to me. Therefore, I'm interested in maybe finding out more what you got, because I'm not just getting some blanketed communication that could be for anybody.
And it could be little things. I mean, a guy named Kurt Shaver, who's a LinkedIn guru, he taught me this one, and it worked great. So anytime your favorite sports team is playing in a championship game. So for the one I actually wrote a blog post on was when the Eagles were playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
You go into LinkedIn, as an example, you find all of your first or even better second level connections who live in Philadelphia and who live in Connecticut, as an example. And everybody of mine who lived in Philadelphia received a connection notice out on LinkedIn. Instead of the boring, would you like to connect with me? It's, hey, congratulations on Philly playing in the big game on Sunday. Sure is going to be exciting. I hope you guys win, even though I'm a Vikings fan. It's just about personalizing it a little bit.
It's not who you know, what you know, but what you know about who.
the other person.
Can you? But how do you get that information about the other person? Is it easy to get?
It is easy. It's easy because the information's out there, and it's hard because the information's out there. There's so much stuff. So I've actually developed
How do you
some
sift
tools.
through it all? How do you sift through all that?
Well, there are that's what I get paid a lot of money to do is teach people how to create complex mathematical queries, or they're called Boolean queries. Quotation marks, minus signs, in colon URL, cite colon URL. No one
If I'm trying to
remembers that
find
stuff.
every New York Giant football fan that likes Eli Manning, you got a system that can help me get to that.
I've got a manual system, but I've also recently developed a technology system that will do that for you. It's called the Sales Intel Engine.
Sales Intel Engine.
Yep.
How does that work?
Well, it's basically doing mining Google, mining what's called the invisible web, or websites that even search engines can't vacuum up for information, and without having to know complex Boolean queries. So, for example, using that, if you said to me, Sam, I need to find all chief executives in New York who went to Syracuse University and are fans of the Yankees, that could be a 30-word mathematical equation in Google, or you could just type in chief, like chief executive, New York, Yankees, Syracuse, and it'll pull up the list for you.
That's unbelievable. And you get that list. Like, do you do online training, like for people out there that are watching, like that are trying to find specific pockets of customers? Yeah. Do you have a course that you can take, or have you not gotten to that point yet?
No, we have. We've developed what's called the No More University. That's
The No More University?
KNOW. So no more. How do you know more about other people?
I love that. So,
yeah.
And so somebody can pay and come online and...
You go online, and it takes... so here's what was the genesis of that? Normally when I speak, Brandon, is you get an hour in a keynote, and you get a standing
ovation. And you're a great speaker.
Thank you.
I mean, if you ever heard him speak, he's second to none. You're unbelievable. You've spoken here a bunch of times at the Yankees. I mean, they loved you, and I brought a lot of speakers over to the Yankees.
It was a fun time. Yeah,
and, Kevin Dart, like you were one of his top favorite speakers.
Thank you. And here's the challenge: is I did a great job at the Yankees. Standing ovation, everybody loves me, and I felt bad leaving. Yeah. Why? Because I had those guys, I think, for 2 hours, and I knew the 4 hours of other stuff that I didn't get to share with them. And so that was really the genesis of the No More University, is how do we take that and break it down into 10-minute videos, 15-minute videos, and not only teach the how to do it, but the why. So it's not just finding that someone is a Yankees fan and went to Syracuse, but what do you do with that without them thinking you're a stalker? What's the language?
So if you were doing a special Syracuse day,
exactly,
at Yankee Stadium, where you wanted to get as many Syracuse supporters there that day, not only did you want them to buy a ticket, but maybe you want to take a sponsorship, or maybe bring all his clients that day.
That's right. Now, how do you find those people, and then how do you approach that person without them thinking you're a stalker? So that's pretty important, because you don't want someone to think that you've been spying on them, even though you have. But the key is. The key is really, how do you be relevant? And I think that's the big word. Is there's no shortage.
Well, do you think people are lazy? Do you think people are also lazy about the way they go about sending out their emails, the subject lines, or the way they feel and look at those emails have gotten? I say with some of these emails, like, what's the statute of limitations on bullshit?
Yeah.
Because at some point, these emails have to evaporate and be stopped.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you even send them?
And it's not that hard.
It can't be a high percentage of responses.
No, and sometimes you don't find information on an individual or a company that is perfectly relevant. Well, then you can find industry information.
Okay.
Hey, Brandon, I know that you're, as a recent author, I stumbled across this article, 5 tips on how to sell a self-published book in today's world. Would you be interested? Yeah, you're probably going to read that.
Got my new book coming out. I'm going to need all the tips I can get.
Exactly.
But you're saying there's a lot more information out there, and people are not digging.
Well, they're not digging because I think, again, they think back to, well, I have the technology. I have the ability to create a list or buy a list or download a list and mass blast to 100,000 people. Well, that means you're going to get 100,000 in the delete folder. I'd rather spend, with the Intel engine and things like that, 3 minutes. I'd rather... I can't do 3 minutes on 100,000 people, but I can do 3 minutes on 1,000 people.
And you may get a better result on those 1,000 you would on the 100,000.
Get way better results.
Because so really size doesn't really matter. It's quality.
That's correct.
And I think people have lost sight of that. The more emails, the more names you have on your social media, that's all that matters.
Yep.
Ben and I always argue about this. Like, if you got 1 million people following you, that means you're a big. But who's following you? And
Yeah.
do those people even matter? Right?
Does it matter?
No,
Who cares?
we're not talking about all the people watching this.
No, everybody
you
who
all seriously
matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to make sure I make a note of that.
Again, it comes down to understanding what the other person cares about and building a relationship. The other thing, too, that's really important is finding out who your best clients and who your best customers know and asking for an introduction.
How do you do that, though? LinkedIn with the advanced search allows you that tool to do that.
You can do it with LinkedIn.
Right.
You can do it with Facebook. You can do searches on, find out what boards of directors Brandon Steiner serves on. What religious institution does he belong to? Are there other executives at that institute? What golf club does he belong to? Find out those kinds of things. Because if I come to you and say, hi, Brandon, hey, do you know any other executives that can use me? You're just going to sit there and you're going to go, okay, yeah, my wife's cousin, I hate his guts anyhow. Here you go. Because you just want to, but if I come to you and say, hey, Brandon, I know that you know Harvey Mackay, the brilliant author Harvey Mackay. Do you think Harvey might be interested in my material? Yeah, I think he'd really be. Would you do me the favor of an introduction? If I ask you for an introduction, most likely
specific.
Very specific. It's going to happen. And I can tell you, knowing Harvey, that I could call him 1,000 times, I could send 1,000 emails, and because he's got really good gatekeepers, it's going to get delete. But if I call his gatekeeper and say, hey, you don't know who I am, but Brandon Steiner said I needed to talk to Harvey, I'm in 30 seconds.
There's no question. A qualified lead is a qualified lead. Just like anything else, it's not who you know, but how you get introduced to who you want to know.
That's right.
It's so important. I mean, I don't just allow anybody. People go, you want to meet this person? I'm like, I barely know you, and you're going to introduce me to another person I don't know. They're going to be wondering, how do I even know you? And I don't even know your relationship with that person.
Yep.
So when I want to get introduced to somebody, I always want to try to get introduced with somebody that I know, that's credible, that would actually tell me legitimately whether they know him or not, and they're just making a silent introduction.
Yeah.
Because, when you meet somebody based on kind of wobbly ground,
Yep.
usually that's where the relationship gets wobbly.
And as an example, so if I wanted to find out what board of directors you serve on, how would I do it? I'd go into Google, I'd type in Brandon Steiner, put it within quotes. When you put something within quotes, it's treated like a single phrase. Brandon Steiner plus board of directors, put that in quotes. And now if your name was Joe Smith, I might need to drill down a little bit deeper. I might need to put in New Rochelle, New York, or sports or kids or youth. But add other terms, you'll find a list of what boards you might serve on, or what volunteer activities, and find out what golf clubs, whatever, articles about you where you can introduce me. And then here's the other benefit of that: when I call you, and here's something that's so important in any sales call, any sales email, any sales text. The first words out of your mouth, or that they read, the other person reads or hears, needs to be about them. It could be as simple as, hey, I saw Syracuse is, made it to the Sweet 16. Congrats, you must be so jazzed, Brandon. Or congratulations on that new book launch. Or wow, I just saw, you did a new thing with the Yankees. That's so cool. See, here's the thing. Every person has a cool story to tell, but they're not going to tell it to you. But if you ask them, people are passionate about what? What are most people incredibly passionate about?
Themselves.
Better
to be interested than interesting.
Yes.
And if you want to fill yourself, forget yourself.
That's exactly
and it's
right.
so hard. The success starts when the selfishness ends.
Yeah.
It's my 3 favorite lines on that subject matter, but it's amazing how many salespeople call and they just jump to their shit, which I'm not even sure I'm even interested in to begin with, let alone even make sense.
Yep.
Instead of just searching to find something that makes sense for me and find some common ground to stand on.
I mean, we'll use a scenario right now. Let's say you don't know me at all, and I'm going to come in and sell you office equipment. Or it could even be I'm coming in for a job interview. I want you to just tell me, and we'll wrap up here, what your response would be if I walked in, first words out of my mouth. Brandon, I read your first book and I love it. And I just, that story that you talked about as it relates to selling those newspapers and walking up and, when you were a
Got
little
my
kid
attention.
being an entrepreneur.
Or you start talking about my kids. You want to start talking about my book.
Kids, yep.
My story growing up. And you got my attention. What's up?
Brandon, that hit so home with me because my first job was, going door to door and selling newspapers.
I love that.
All of a sudden, boom, it's like, how big a check can I write you, Sam? Or when can you start in your new job? People care about themselves. And here's the neat thing. I'm actually an introvert by nature. And that's really the reason I came up with all this stuff, is because if I can find something cool about another person, my introvertedness melts away. I actually get excited. Oh, wow, this person played college basketball, or he was, we went to the same high school together, 30 years apart, but I bet you we still know Mrs. McGillicuddy. I bet you she failed him too. Something we can talk about. And that's really what it's about.
That's Sam Richter. Take the cold out of cold calling. He hasn't mentioned his book, but that's an easy workbook to get if you're thinking about getting a book to learn more about selling. Better to be interesting than be interested, right?
Well, I think the opposite. Better to be
interested than interesting.
Yep.
Better to be interested
than interesting. Yep.
And this success starts when the selfishness ends. Sam Richter, look him up online. You will not be disappointed. I've never been disappointed. Every minute I spend with you is just a gem.
Thank you. Thanks,
I've been
buddy.
able to progress, just become a little smarter when I'm with you.
And
I
thank
look
you
a
for
lot
everything.
smarter when I'm hanging out with him. Plus, he wears the blue shirts. As you know, I'm a big blue shirt guy.